I would like to welcome everybody to this presentation in which I will discuss some of the latest examples that we have been working as metal screening purification group here in the analytical R&D department in Merck. Some of the latest examples on how we can efficiently integrate chromatographic modeling by use of LC simulator software into our screening platforms to dramatically improve the performance of our screening separations. I would like to begin, however, there you go. Okay, I would like to begin with illustrating what is the current situation with drugs that we have in the pipeline of different pharmaceutical and biopharmaceutical companies. More specifically, we know that we are dealing more and more with drugs that have a higher complexity in the structure, and more often than not, this rise in drug complexity also translates into an increase in the analytical complexity, in the analytical assets that we need to develop and establish in order to satisfy the requirements, in order to efficiently characterize and analyze these new biopharmaceutical entities. And this problem, as we can see, is starting to become more and more relevant nowadays. If we compare the top 200 drugs that have been sold on the market between 2006 and 2021, what we can see is that the biopharmaceuticals have more than quadrupled their presence in this classification, and of course the trend is expected to increase more and more in the future years as we have more proteins, monoclonal antibodies, oligonucleotides, more biopharmaceutical species that are going to be released on the market. Now, as I said before, if we have more more complex drugs, we are expecting therefore an increase in the analytical complexity. Therefore, how can we tackle this complex scenario? How can we tackle this situation? What we found out in the metal screening purification group is that the more established state-of-the-art approaches, typically reverse phase chromatography for chromatographic separations, it's still a valid approach. However, if we want nowadays to obtain the best results, we need to utilize a variety of techniques. Therefore, we cannot rely anymore on few techniques anymore. We must utilize the full range of analytical tools, supercritical chromatography, helix exclusion, ion exchange, if we want to keep obtaining the same optimal results that we used to achieve 20, 30 years ago with much simpler entities. However, if we now have to consider multiple techniques, if we have to consider different chromatographic modalities, we can imagine how the method development becomes incredibly more complex, more challenging. Is there a way, therefore, to simplify the method development? In our group, well, we decided to utilize a strategy more and more often is this dual approach in which we combine automated screening platforms in order to analyze the most comprehensive set of experimental conditions to determine which kind of combination of columns, stationary phases, which chromatographic technique is the most suited for a given example. And afterwards, as we move towards the optimization method stage, here we're starting to rely more and more often on the utilization of modeling tools in order to dramatically reduce the number of experiments that we need to achieve in order to quickly identify the best set of combinations that give us the final separation and hopefully the baseline resolution of all our peaks of all our components. Therefore, in few words, what we are dealing is something at the beginning is complex, and hopefully towards the end, once we have our finalized method, we have something that is simple and easy to use. I will just show you two different examples of this strategy in which we were able to analyze both small and large molecules and biomolecules. I would like to begin, first of all, with our automated ion exchange platform combined with the in silico modeling. Now, here in this case, As I said before, the first stage of our two-step approach is to rely on automated screening platforms. This we are able to do it quite efficiently by establishing close collaborations with the instrument providers. Essentially, what we do is we ask them to give us some highly customized systems in order to meet our needs, our requirements. In this case, what we want is to have the possibility to install at the same time on the same system the highest number of solver lines as well as count lines in order to reduce the amount of manual work that we require from people in the lab who are actually carrying the experiments. And as we can see here, we were able to establish this ion exchange screening setup by using a bioinert UHPLC. And with the use of different valve drives, we were able to obtain up to 24 different solver lines and 12 different column positions. Now, for our exchange, we need to have such a dramatically high number combination of both solvent and column lines because we have different parameters that we need to consider, quite obviously. As we can see here, we need, first of all, to address the choice of whether we need to utilize cation or anion exchange for our analysis. We need to choose which kind of elution profile we need to use, salt gradient, pH gradient, or the combination of salt and pH gradients. Therefore, we need to install an impressive number of mobile phases in order to take into consideration the different pHs, different type and concentration of salts, etc. And not only solver lines, but also column positions. We need to consider, of course, cation exchange columns with both weak and strong exchangers. If we are able, therefore, to install all of this simultaneously on the same system, we can therefore obtain a automated system that give us a high degree of gives the possibility to streamline the mass development, to analyze with a single sample list an impressive selection of experimental conditions. We decided to test, therefore, the power of this screening system by using small and large biomolecules. Our choice fell on nucleotides, proteins, and peptides, as those are the most common biopharmaceuticals that we are currently seeing in the pipeline of different biopharmaceutical companies. What we do is we have screened each mixture through all columns that we have at our disposal at 8 different pH mobile phase pHs in order to see which combination of these two parameters yields the best or the most promising conditions. We were able to collect all results as a form of a scorecard in which we can quickly see, for example, the red boxes if we do not have any separation or poor separation, and the green boxes, those are the ones where we have either already a basis separation of all components or conditions that can be moved to a optimization stage later on. And we were able to do so, as we can see here, by performing 96 injections. So now this is possible if we are able to automate, if we're able to install all this selection of columns and mobile phases simultaneously on the system. And we were able to do this in an automated way by simply creating a sample list. We were able to screen each mixture overnight by analyzing these 96 different conditions. And as we can see, we're able to obtain already conditions that either give us the best separation, for example, for the nucleotide or the protein mixtures, or conditions that can be later on optimized, because this is actually more often the case with our real life examples. For example, for the peptide mixtures, here we need to improve a little bit more the resolution between the first two eluting species. At this stage, we start to involve the use of LC simulator softwares in order to minimize the number of experiments and to analyze essentially the impact of multiple chromatographic parameters. This is something that we can easily do with modeling tools. as LC simulator system software. As we can see here, we were able to do a multifactorial optimization of our ion exchange method. By simply performing only 27 injections, we were able to model pH, time, and temperature, but we can also model other parameters if we need to. And we were able, therefore, to obtain a simulated chromatogram that ensured the best resolution, and therefore a further resolution between the two early eluting peptides in our case. When we decided to see if the simulated chromatogram also corresponded to efficient experimental conditions, we decided therefore to test the method that the LC simulator tool gave us, and we were able to obtain excellent correlation between the simulated and the experimental chromatograms. Therefore, we realized that we can use in a reliable way this strategy, and we can therefore obtain a different set of conditions that allows us to unlock different applications. Now, in this case, for example, we were able to greatly resolve and obtain baseline resolution between the first two peaks. The use of this resolution cube also enabled us to put ourselves in other conditions to unlock a different application, such as the next one. What we were able to do with this system is also to install an additional module, a fraction collector module, in order to obtain the isolation of our pharmaceutical in native conditions. This is one of the main features of ion exchange. What we were able to do, therefore, is to pick a different set of conditions by simply choosing a different place in our resolution cube in order to obtain the best separation of our targeted, in this case, peptide. In this case, it was peptide number 3 from the other mixture components. And we were able, therefore, to quickly establish a isolation method in order to efficiently isolate and purify our targeted pharmaceutical. And as we can see here, we're able to obtain a pretty high purity level for our isolated peptide. Now, the use of this strategy also enabled us to come up with other strategies, with other applications, such as the following. In this case, we had to come up with a method for one of our pipeline compounds. We decided that to go with an exchange chromatography based on our screening results, and thanks to the use of screening and the modeling approach, we were able to quickly come up with this method to separate our API from all the remaining reaction impurities. However, we also needed to collect MS data. Therefore, we had to establish a 2D ion exchange reverse phase method in order to have a more efficient hyphenation of our ion exchange with MS, as we were not using MS compatible conditions in our first dimension ion exchange method. We were able to utilize the same method on a 2D LC platform. We were able to keep the same quality of separation, and actually we were able to confirm by performing a hard cut of the main peak that we were in fact obtaining a high purity level of our API. And we were also able to gather, of course, additional information from our second dimension reverse phase analysis on some of the low level impurities, as we were able to generate additional resolution between compounds that were in fact coeluting in our first dimension. And of course, we were able to ensure, in this case, the hyphenation to MS, and therefore gathering the MS data that we needed for this particular example. Now, all of this and other applications were subject of a publication, and I suggest you, if you want to know more details, to use the QR code to check out our paper that got published earlier in this year. This was just one example. I want to give you also another example by utilizing, therefore, modeling approaches for color UHP LC analysis for both small synthetic and biomolecules. Now, once again, our strategy here was to come up again with a screening tool in order to have at disposal the most comprehensive set of experimental conditions. In chiral, we know that supercritical chromatography has become the gold standard for this kind of separation. However, liquid chromatography, it's always the easier to translate or to transfer, especially if we need to provide this method to people who are not really expert in chromatography separations. They tend to be more familiar with LC techniques. Therefore, we decided to establish a chiral HPLC tool in order to efficiently come up with chiral methods that can compete with chiral supercritical chromatography, and of course having a higher user-friendly feature. In this case, we were able to use, again, via the addition of bulk drives, a higher number of columns and mobile phases in order to screen different, not only conditions, but also chromatographic techniques. We can therefore screen reverse phase, polar ionic mode, polar organic mode. We can screen hydrophilic interaction chromatography. And not only that, but we can also test essentially the state-of-the-art chiral stationary phases that we currently have in our market. We go therefore from the more classic derivatized polysaccharides to the more recent macrocyclic glycopeptides, kinase-based, cyclofructan, dextrine, etc. In order to have, again, a selection of complementary columns with different properties between them. Once again, we decided therefore to test the potential of this platform. We selected a choice of around 18 different standard compounds. In this case, we stick with more classic synthetic APIs as well as amino acids, as they are increasingly become more present in the pipeline, mainly as starting material for later on for the synthesis of peptides. We come up with a choice of around 35 experimental conditions, combinations of chiral stationary phase and mobile phases that we wanted to test per racemate. Now, the usefulness of using automated platforms is that we can, once again, as we have seen previously for the ion exchange screening platform, we can screen a high number of experimental conditions at a reduced time frame. In this case, we only needed 6 hours to test the 35 conditions per for a given racemate. And once again, we were able to obtain a scorecard in which we can easily discriminate which conditions work or do not work. And the screening platform is particularly useful, especially for chiral separations, as we can have situations, for example, for compound 8, where we can have different green boxes. Therefore, we can have the choice of picking really the best combinations, as we have several conditions that seem to provide already a basic separation or something that can be easily optimized. But in other examples, for example, for compound number 2, we were able to find only one condition between the overall 35 in order that gave us the actual separation of the two enantiomers. This actually greatly exemplifies how we need powerful and reliable screenings, especially for chiral separation, and how we need to look for automation in this case, as we need to screen a high number of experimental conditions. Now, what we have done, therefore, was to, again, translate the best picks that came from our screening stage, and we wanted to obtain a final method by introducing, even for chiral separations, the use of LC simulator tool. However, for chiral separations, we need to consider that the nature of the separation that the stationary phase has to establish, which each enantiomer, is quite complex in order to have the necessary enantiomer discrimination between the two chiral species. And this translates into a different choice of the model that we need to use for our modeling experiments. If, for example, we stick to a more generic, more traditional linear first-degree polynomial fit equation, what we can see is that we do obtain experimentally a method that seems to work. However, this is not a method that is reproducible in experimental conditions. If, however, we change, and this is something that LC simulator give us the possibility to, if we change the model, we can have something that has a higher correlation between experimental and the predicted conditions. And this, again, this improved strategy gave us the possibility to develop different combination of applications. First of all, we were able to establish simultaneous fast enantiomer resolution of multiple RASMAs in the same run, but also to quickly come up with methods that can be used in a multidimensional LC system. Once again, all these results have been previously published in this year, and you can use the QR code if you want to have more information about this particular work. And in general, if we go to our first question, is there a way to simplify the method development? Yes, if we couple screening platforms with the use of the LC simulator software. Now, if we want to use the, we have seen how modeling tools are particularly useful for the modeling for the method development stage. We can also use the modeling to come up with a solution to a problem that is starting now to arise more and more. What we see is that we need to analyze now more complex samples, which are more often than not present in complex matrices. We need to therefore screen different column chemistries. We need to perform, in general, a higher number of analyses. Now, this, of course, puts a greater amount of stress on columns, which can result, therefore, in a higher probability of having degradation phenomenon. Which, therefore, we are talking about the phenomenon of column aging, which is something that we need to take into consideration, as we can have some interesting results. For example, here, if we look at this column, we can see that we can separate the main peak from a suspected impurity with an area above 0.1%. However, if we test the same method, the same analyte on new columns with the same stationary phases, we see that the impurity disappears. Now, this is something that was due to the column aging phenomenon. As we can see, the full chromatogram, the new columns gave us sharp peaks, but the old columns, however, gave us the rise of peaks with tailing, and we have therefore the phenomenon also of peak shouldering. Therefore, we're actually getting bad results because of the poor performance of the column. Therefore, can we use modeling tools to build a generic system suitability test in order to track column performance? What we decided to do, therefore, was to select a choice of analytes in order to represent compounds eluting at different stages of our gradient. And we used modeling to come up with a method that separates these compounds under an impressive choice of column chemistries and mobile phase combinations. As we can see here, we were able to obtain a method that separates the mixtures on 6 different columns at 3 different mobile phase pHs. We have taken acidic, neutral, and basic pH. If we take the star here, we can see that in this area, we obtain the separation, the baseline separation of all of our components using in each of the 18 conditions. And this is something that we can use, this method, to efficiently track columns. As we can see here, we obtain the baseline resolution of all components. And this can be used to, again, see if the column is starting to lose its performance or not. By simply comparing, therefore, the performance of the column originally, therefore, once we first used, versus the moment where we say, okay, is starting to losing its original performance. You can see here by analyzing this probe by using the method that we have developed thanks to the modeling, we can see that we are experiencing rotation time shift, we're experiencing tailing phenomenon, we're experiencing coelution, we're losing therefore resolution power of our column. And this method is something that we can use now on a big selection of columns, therefore it's something that it's generic. Once again, all these results have been described in this paper. I would suggest you to check this one out if you want to have more information. And in general, can we utilize modeling tools to build a generic stability test? Yes. If we combine LSTC with the software, we were able to efficiently come up with a generic method to develop a system suitability probe in order to establish the column performance over time. This concludes my presentation. I would like to thank all of my collaborators and my postdoc supervisor that has helped me during this postdoc here at Merck. And of course, I would like to thank you for your attention. And of course, if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask me.